welcome back to Tipoff 2023-2024. Ron Poniewasz, Larry Kelly are joining you here for another week of basketball fun. Larry Kelly is a member of the Luxembourg, Arbit, Kelly & George law firm, the current assistant baseball coach for Penn State Shenango, former varsity coach baseball for Shenango High School, and a former ninth grade basketball coach at Newcastle High School. So that kind of justifies his knowledge of basketball. So
I got a lot of titles. I know that. Whether it justifies any knowledge, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But as I've told you, I kind of miss coaching hoops. I've been coaching these games from my couch and watching the games on live stream. And I know we're going to talk about the Elwood City boys game. Man, you're going to lose some sleep if you're the coach of that team. And that coach has done a great job this year with that team. But we'll talk about that later on. First thing we're going to talk about is a young man who's hit the 1,000-point mark and is on his way to a very elite club of 2,000 points. Tell us about him.
Yeah, he's on pace. He's definitely on pace. So certainly he has to stay healthy. And that's Mohawk High School's Bobby Fadden, 6'1" sophomore guard. Scored 28 points last week in a 54-48 win over Young in the WPIAL quarterfinals, Class 3A. And that performance got them not only into the semifinals, but for him, he got him into a special club, the 1,000-point club. And he right now, after Monday night's semifinal loss to Burrell, Bobby Fadden now has 1,010 career points.
That's a very elite club. And, Bobby Fadden's only a sophomore, and he already has 1,000 points. So barring injury, there's a pretty good chance he's going to get to 2,000. The director of our groove ship, Mr. Sirianni, sent me the list of those in Lawrence County who have scored 2,000 points, and that includes Kevin Covert in 1995. How about Donnie Hennon in 1955? Scored 2,376 points without a three-point line. Mm-hmm. I think in 1955, they still might have been jumping the ball up after every made hoop. So that is really impressive to me. Of course, Donnie Henning went on to be an All-American at the University of Pittsburgh. And a little-known fact is his senior All-American team, when he was at Pitt, including some of the greatest names in the history of basketball. And that would have been Will Chamberlain, Elgin Baylor, Oscar Robertson were on that team with Donnie Hennon. Of course, David Young from Newcastle in 1999. He has 22-32. Stevie McNeese, the son of Billy McNeese, 21-92 at Shenango. David Quat, whose son is now playing at Neshannock, had 2,085 points. Here's a name out of the past, Warren Saladay, Wilmington High School in 1959. No three-point line, had 2,075 points. And, of course, we're now at Joseph Roth, who has 2,005 points, Elwood City. What I like about Bobby Fadden is that he's not a one-trick pony. He can score from the three-point line as well as in the paint. And that's what makes him really dangerous. That's what makes him so difficult to guard. That's what makes him so successful. He has a very quick first step. He can finish at the rim. And if you lay off him, he'll knock down threes. So this young man, before he's done, I don't know if he's going to catch Kevin Covert, but he's going to get close. So he's a special player. I saw him as an 8th grader playing against my Newcastle 9th grade team, and I knew then he was special. And he's proven me to be right. So maybe I can recognize basketball talent. I don't know.
And I'm a stickler for free throw shooting, and he is a good, really good free throw shooter, is Bobby Fadden.
He's good in everything. There's nothing that he can't do, and that's what makes him a special player. A lot of these young men at the high school level, they're a one-trick pony, most of which today the game is all about three-point shooting. Mm-hmm. And, when we talk about these playoff games, I want to talk a little bit about the loss that Neshannock has, the loss that Mohawk has. And, one of the things that I'm a stickler on, and in both of those games, Mohawk got dominated from the foul line. Burrell went to the line 21 times, Mohawk 8 times. Deer Lakes went to the line 42 times in that game, only hit 22. Neshannock shot 14 foul shots. So, when you can get to the line that often, it tells me you're running good offense. We've talked about this, and it puts the other team in foul trouble. It does a lot of good stuff for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Mohawk is 17-8 overall, and right now they are playing in a consolation matchup against Neshannock. That game started about 20 minutes ago out at Mohawk. Both teams are headed to the PIAA playoffs, Class 3A. So that is Athlete of the Week, Bobby Fadden, for his 28-point performance last week against York in the WPIAL quarterfinals.
Yes, special young man, and I'm sure that game today, even though it's a consolation game, Neshannock and Mohawk, it's the rubber match because those teams split the season series. I think both of them were hoping that they would be playing over the weekend at the Peterson Event Center, but I'm sure there'll be a full house at Mohawk, and it'll be a hotly contested game. When I played sports, which was many years ago, I didn't mind losing the out of town teams. Man, I never wanted to lose to my neighbors, right? You never want to lose to the guys in the neighborhood. And so that'll be a great game tonight. I'll be anxious to see how that turns out.
Okay, we're going to talk about a couple of topics here. As Larry alluded to, the Elwood City lost to Deer Lakes. We'll tell you who is into the state playoffs, boys and girls. We'll do that on the other side right here on Tipoff.
We all know there's an advantage to being the home team, to playing at home. And at LGKG, we have been your home team for personal injury cases involving automobile accidents and workers' compensation claims for over 90 years. At LGKG, over 10,000 clients have trusted us to represent them. We know how to present your case to a Western Pennsylvania jury. We know what makes them tick. We know how to win.
We're back with you off, and just last week, Larry, the Elwood City boys were within moments of clinching a berth in the semifinals. That would have locked up a berth to the PIAA playoffs as well. However, things just unraveled for the Wolverines at the end of regulation and in overtime as well. To rehash it, in regulation, Joseph Roth, who recently went over 2,000 points, had a two-shot foul, missed both ends of those free throws with 13 seconds left in regulation, and the score tied at 32. In overtime, fast forward a little bit, it was 37-32 Elwood, looking fine. And next thing you know, it's not fine. Nate Williams hit 1 out of 2 free throws with 17 seconds left for Elwood City. That put the team up 38-37. So right there's 2 instances, Larry, huge spots for free throws, and you go 1 for 4. If Joseph Roth, you have to, hindsight's 20/20. I get that. You split, even if you split them, you go up 1, you force Deer Lakes to have to score. With a tie game, yeah, you want to score, you want to win, but it's not absolutely mandatory, at that part. You got to hit those free throws. Same with Nate Williams, 1 for 4 combined, those guys. 0 for 2 for Roth, 1 for 2 for Williams. That was a key spot. And that fast forwards it a little bit more. Elwood City's now inbounding the ball. I'm not sure if you saw the highlight.
I saw it.
What's your thoughts, first of all, about throwing a pass about nearly 48 feet or so inbounds?
You certainly don't want to do that.
Right.
You certainly don't want to do that. And I'm sure that the coach didn't want to do that either. Coach Bradley, right, is the coach at Elwood City. I've watched his teams play. He's a good coach. It's a baseline out of bounds play under your own basket. And at Newcastle, we had 4, 5, 6 different plays. This is under your own basket to get the ball in bounds. They get the ball in bounds, they're going to foul you. You're going to go to the foul line. And then, hey, you got to knock down the foul shots. But I will never be critical of a young man who misses foul shots. That's a physical error. It happens, Ronnie. It happens in the NBA, let alone high school. When I coached, and I coached for more than 25 years, it was mental mistakes that would, cause me issues and that I would want to stop, but not physical errors. Those young men are trying to make those foul shots. And Joseph Roth is a 2,000-point scorer. you can't look at his career in total and point to 2 foul shots that he misses at the end of the game and say, well, geez, if it wasn't for him and everything he did throughout this season, they'd have never been in that spot. But getting back to the play, the last thing you want to do is throw the ball towards the basket of your opponent, because if they make a steal, you know, there's no defense back there and you're setting them up for a layup. So I'm sure that wasn't the play call. I talked to one of the Roth brothers. I asked, did Elwood have a timeout? They didn't have a timeout. You know, you just can't do that. Now, having said that, if you watch the play, the pass was a 50-50 ball, meaning you got 2 players going for the ball. But what happened after the ball was tipped was an obvious foul. The young man from Deer Lakes grabbed the kid from Elwood City by the shoulder and threw him to the ground to gain an advantage that allowed him to make the steal and eventually make the hoop. Now, I'm a big guy, and I'm a big proponent of an official only blowing the whistle when he absolutely has to. Let the players decide the game. The foul call 2 years ago in the WPIAL final with, 0.2 of a second left to send Rodney Gallagher to the line, that should have never been made. That foul should have never been called. Let the players decide the game. However, in this case, when you have one guy ripping a guy down from behind, and it's just a distinct advantage for Deer Lakes at that time, you have to blow the whistle. Again, you should only blow it when you absolutely have to, or else let the players decide the game. The referee is supposed to blow the whistle there.
And as you mentioned, Newcastle 5 or 6 inbound plays is one of the scenarios. Now, naturally, and I'll mention this, when a player's going out of bounds and they spike the ball off the other team, you know, to regain possession, is that one of your inbound plays? If you can't find plays?
No, but you know, Larry Kelly's view was I always had the point guard taking the ball out of bounds because I want maybe the smartest player, basketball IQ highest player on the floor taking the ball out, somebody who's used to handling the rock, so that if you get in that situation, you can bounce it off somebody's leg before the 5-second call is made. But at the very least, at the very inbounds the ball right in front of your basket. If they steal it, they got to go the length of the court to score a bucket. I'm sure when that pass went back towards the half-court line, Coach Bradley and his staff, you know, I'm sure they were sick about it.
Yeah. Another possible inbounding is if the opposition has their back to you, bounce it off bounce it off their backside or their back, what have you. A lot of people do that. They'll bounce it off of them, run in bounds, catch it, and there you go.
I still want one of the plays that I remember of our run at Newcastle. This is right before the half. It's against Hampton at the Palumbo Center. And Anthony Richards is taking the ball out of bounds. And one of the Luther brothers, I don't remember if it was Colin or Ryan, has his back to the inbounder, which at Newcastle we never did. And Anthony bounced the ball off, I think it was Colin Luther's back. He stepped in bounds, caught it, shot a layup. The horn sounded to end the half, and Anthony sprinted off the court. I still remember the play like it was yesterday. There's a lot of things you can do. Now, if you're taking the ball out under their basket, then the home run pass is a safe pass because if they steal it, they got to go 94 feet the other way to score. I'm sure this wasn't the way that play was drawn up. And it's 2 things happened. Number one, you know, the kids made a mistake throwing the ball back there. And number 2, the referee made a mistake because he blew the call. There should have been a foul call. Not on the initial chance to gather the pass in. Both kids are going for the ball. I don't call anything there. I let the players decide it. But once the ball's tipped and the kid from Deer Lakes grabs the Elwood kid by the shoulder and throws him to the ground, you have to blow the whistle there. And they did.
Yeah. Just to take one moment here. Final score from Meadville High School, Northwestern 66, Wilmington 56. The Lady Greyhounds will go to the consolation bracket where they will play the loser of Mercyhurst Prep and Seneca, that game on Saturday. Winner goes to the state playoffs. Loser collects their gear and goes off to spring sports.
Yeah. Well, let's hope Wilmington can gather themselves and get, as they say, back on the horse and start riding again. They've had a good season, a very good season.
Yes, they have. I get it. It's probably playgroundish type basketball, Larry, but when you get up to a count of four, I'm sure coaches probably tell players, you got to have an inbound clock. You got to have a clock in your mind saying 1, 2, 3. When you get to 4, what's to stop an inbounder to just say, let me throw it to a blank spot 5 feet in front of me, because even if the other team gets it at 94 feet away, they got to go 89 feet on a running clock rather than 40 some feet, on a Hail Mary to half court.
In retrospect, Ronnie, sure, that's the play. If I'm taking a ball in bounds and I can't bounce it off of somebody and the ref gets the 4, I don't care if he's double teamed or not. I'm probably throwing a lob up there to Joe Roth at 6'6" and let him take his chance of bringing it down. Kid's a warrior. My money would have been on him. But again, you're talking about high school kids.
Yeah.
In the moment, in a big game, stuff happens. I've certainly made, as an athlete, many physical errors, but that one there might have been a mental error. I'm sure that wasn't the way the play was called. And I'm sure the coaches discussed with the inbounder, and I don't know who it is, hey, look, if you get the 4, we don't have a timeout. Here are the options. So,
yep.
And I don't know what the play call was. I couldn't tell. You got to set screens, stagger screens, roll backs, step ins. And we had a bunch of different ways to get the ball in bounds, because normally when you're taking the ball inbounds under your own bucket, you just don't want to get it in. You want to score a basket. You're looking to score a basket. And we had several plays designed to do that.
Yeah. So Elwood City now is in a do or die consolation bracket final against York tonight. That game is probably about halftime right now. It's 7:30 on Wednesday evening. That game tipped off at 7. They really let it go on Saturday. They're playing at home against Derry, playing at home again. A win, they're in the state playoffs, and they lost by 19 points. So I'm not sure how deflated they were from that Deer Lakes game, but could be quite a letdown tonight if they lose again.
I'm sure that had something to do with it. The letdown. They had that game for all practical intents and purposes. One, it's pretty tough to regroup again and be back on the court 1 or 2 nights later. It really is, and I'm sure that had something to do with it.
Yeah. Consolation game tonight. The other one is Neshannock and Mohawk, as we briefly touched on in the Athlete of the Week segment, with Mohawk hosting Neshannock. A very much anticipated third meeting between the teams. However, it's being played a hell of a lot closer to home as opposed to down in Pittsburgh, where everybody was hoping it would be and where everyone thought it would be.
That would be a great game if you had Neshannock and Mohawk in the WPIAL final at the Pete. It would have been a great game. There'd have been a bunch of Lawrence County people there. It's a shame it didn't happen. But both teams have had great seasons. Ronnie, it's very difficult to win it all. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this. We've talked about this. When you look back in retrospect, if Deer Lake wins it all, if they win the WPIAL championship, they're going to look back and say that one play against Elwood City that could have gone the other way on a foul call went their way. There's always a little bit of what I call fortuitous, call it luck, circumstance. But if you look back, there's always one play or one call. If it had gone the other way, you don't get to your ultimate destination. And, I'm sure both Mohawk and Neshannock are going to look back and they'll say, there was one play or something that went down in these semifinal games that had it gone the other way, could have made the difference in the outcome.
How in the world is a team like Deer Lakes in the spot that they are, #1 seed, playing for a championship? By rights, should have lost to Elwood City. By rights, could have lost and should have lost to Neshannock. How are they just finding ways to get by?
Ah, they're mentally tough and they're laser focused. They went to the line 42 times against Neshannock. 42, and again,
You know why?
pardon me?
You know why, right?
Well, there was a big size discrepancy, as I understand it. And they didn't go to the line. They shot 42 foul shots. Neshannock only shot 14. And look, I get it about the 3-point shot. It's huge in basketball today, and you have to defend it. But in that game, Neshannock makes 11 threes. Deer Lakes makes 4. That's a big disparity. But when you go to the line and shoot 42 foul shots and your opponent shoots 14, that's telling me there's more to this game than just chucking up threes. They're dropping the ball down in the post. That's old school basketball. You're forcing, they're getting it into paint. There's ways to guard the post. Once the big guy gets it down there, you're probably in trouble. But even then, you could double team it. There's things to do. You could front them. In Newcastle, we would 3-quarter front the post man. We would have weak sale help behind them. There's ways to defend it, but you got to give Deer Lake some credit. They must have been running some pretty good offense because John Corey's a good coach and knows how to defend that. But, they can get it in the post. They can get it in the paint. They can go to the line and good things happen. And the same thing in the Burrell-Mohawk game. Mohawk had more threes than Burrell. It was only 6-4, but Burrell shot 21 foul shots. Mohawk shoots 8. That tells me Burrell's running pretty good offense. And if you read the game story, that's their shtick. They run good offense. They slow it down. They execute their offensive sets. That's what they want to do. And, to the start, I think it was the 4th or the 3rd quarter, they held the ball for a minute and a half before they shot it. You got to be a pretty good team to do that when the other team's playing pressure defense, because I'm certain Mohawk was playing a man-to-man. So, I get it. You got to shoot threes and you got to be able to make them, but I'm still a big proponent. If you want to win games, you got to get the ball in the paint and you got to get to the foul line, because more times than not, it's almost 80-90% of the times, if you shoot more foul shots than your opponent, you're going to win the game. Now, That's true in every game except the blowout. Like the Union girls just absolutely blew out their opponent, and it doesn't matter in a game like that. But in a hotly contested game, the team that goes to the line more normally wins.
Yeah. Larry, I'm not sure how you want it, sugar-coated or right between the eyes in terms of Deer Lakes' free throw shooting. But when I spoke with John Corey after the game, he said he told the kids, leading up to the game, if you get yourself in a bad spot, it's okay to take the foul, and that's kind of, code, if you read in between the lines, that, again, I'm not sure how you want it, sugar-coated or right between the eyes. I'll sugarcoat it. They're not a good free throw shooting team.
Well, that's obvious. They only hit 22 of 42.
Right.
They only hit 22 of 42. That's pretty terrible for a high school team. We used to want to shoot. We'd want to make 2 out of 3. We wanted to be close to 70%. But the fact of the matter is, they're getting the ball in the paint and they're putting you in a defensive position that's very vulnerable. So they're executing good offense to do that. They just are. And again, that's old school basketball, Ronnie. You don't see teams dropping the ball into a postman who's playing with his back to the basket. I was with Ralph for 12 years at Newcastle. We never did that. Never. Now, did we get some good shots in the paint? Absolutely. But that was based a lot on dribble drive and making the right play once you got in there, either to drop it to a 5 or to kick it out for a 3. But, I didn't see the game, but I did get the impression maybe Deer Lakes, they were playing postman with their back to the basket, which you don't see very often.
You are by trade a former coach, assistant, sitting on the bench for Ralph at Newcastle, coaching 9th grade basketball. So you go through the daily grind and you have a successful team, and you go home at night saying, we're winning, but my God, are we god awful at the foul line. How does that make you feel? What's going through how do you handle it?
Uncomfortable. It makes me feel uncomfortable. we practice foul shooting every day. I'm kind of the opinion you can either do it or you can't. You can make a good foul shooter a little better. You're never going to make a bad foul shooter good. It's just the way it is. It's a mindset, and there's some guys that just get there and they're automatic. There are other guys who are very good shooters who are not great foul shooters. Blake Hinson from the University of Pittsburgh, the best three-point shooter in the country, shoots less than 60, or he shoots around 60% from the foul line. So you would think a guy like that would be an 80% foul shooter, and I think he's somewhere around 65%, maybe 66. So it's a real art. It is. But I'll take my chances. You let me go to the line 42 times, or let me shoot 42 foul shots. I like my chances of winning the game because it's telling me I'm executing my offense and playing pretty good offensive in the offensive zone.
I've always said, Larry, I respect the hell out of coaches that, at any sport, because, it just proves that I couldn't do that trade. I really couldn't, because that kind of stuff just frustrates me. 22 out of 42, probably the first thing I would do if I got hired by a school to coach basketball, I'd tell the athletic director, we got 22 regular season games, 2 halves of basketball each game. I need the school to order me at least 100 clipboards, because I'm going through them like crazy. If we're going to shoot like that, I'm probably going to get myself kicked out of a basketball game, not because of antics against the ref, but just screaming and hollering, make the free throws.
Ronnie, there's nothing you can do. That's a physical error. As a coach, these are high school kids. Again, physical errors, they happen. They didn't bother me. It's mental mistakes that bother you as a coach. And good teams, championship teams, they're laser focused and they're mentally tough. When you're laser focused, you can go to the foul line in a relaxed state, go through your pre-foul shot routine and knock them down. When you're mentally tough, you can go to the line and miss 2, and the next time up, knock 2 down with the game on the line. So, physical errors, kids miss shots. There's nothing you can do about it. And we practice them every day, before and after practice. We would shoot, you'd had to make 20 foul shots before practice. This is Larry Kelly's practice, and Ralph was similar. You got to make 20, not shoot 20. You got to make 20 at 5 at a time, so you're kind of assimilating game activity. And then we would go through our layup drills. And if you missed a layup, we would count the number of layups that you missed. And then we'd go to the foul line. If you missed 15 layups in our drill, then in that event, you had to make foul shots to knock off those 15, because if you go to the line and you miss, then it adds up. You go to the line, you miss one, you owe me 16 suicides, and you would have to run them off if you didn't make them via foul. We tried to create game pressure so that when you got in a game, you had already been there, you felt the pressure, and you could knock them down.
Okay, one last question here regarding that before we go on to who's in the playoffs and who is still alive in terms of the state playoffs. Larry, you touched on the guy for Pitt, Hinson.
Blake Hinson.
Yeah, I'd imagine he's probably their star.
He is. He was player of the week in the whole country, not this week, but last week. Yes.
Okay, so take a star player, Larry. We'll just ask you a star player at the boys' high school level, or even men's college basketball. What is the floor, bottom line, bare minimum that you could accept as a free throw shooter for a star, for somebody that's big man on campus? Look at me, 2004, and I can do it all.
You'd want that player to make 2 out of 3. You'd want that player to shoot 66%. And the great foul shooters, they shoot somewhere between 80 and 90. But I would want a star player to at least hit 2 out of every 3. Okay. Now, in the world we live in today, they say that's not a good foul shooter. They'll say, you'll hear an NBA game, oh, he's only shooting 70% from the line. But those are pros. High school kids, as a team, we want to shoot 70%. We want to make 2 out of 3. The great ones, they're somewhere between 80 and 90. Not a lot of those guys out there, though.
Mm-hmm. PIAA playoff teams, boys. These teams have clinched spots: Mohawk, Neshannock, and Union boys. Elwood City is still hanging around. They're playing right now against York, and for the life of me, I have no idea what the score of that game is. No update for you. Elwood needs to win. If they do, they are the seventh place team out of the WPIAL. If they lose, it's baseball and track season for the Wolverines. Girls basketball, Larry. We have Neshannock and Union are in. Neshannock last night, Tuesday night, defeated Beaver Falls and picked up the 3 seed out of the district. Union girls are playing for the championship on Saturday morning. Wilmington just lost a little while ago, 66-56 to Northwestern, and they have that consolation match against Mercyhurst Prep or Seneca, the losing team of that game. That game starts at 7:30 tonight, I believe. Wednesday, and that consolation game will be Saturday. Winner goes on is the 10-3 in Class 3A. The loser again turns in their uniforms, and it's softball and track season for the loser.
Yeah, I mean, it's a new start. It's a new tournament. It's a little tougher tournament because the travel can be arduous in a state playoff game. You know, we played Newcastle. We played a few games in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. It's a 3-hour bus ride. And, you know, so the state games, you could have big time travel. It's a little tougher. You don't know as much about the teams you're going to play. You know, in the WPIAL, I mean, everybody's on huddle now, but in the WPIAL, you might get a live glimpse of the team you're going to play. Normally doesn't happen in a state game.
Yeah. You want an update on a game, you can't find it. Yeah, but if you're not looking for one, there's one on every avenue that you look at. So
that's because you're a good writer. You're trying to keep us up to speed on what's happening in these games.
The Union girls, Larry, they are going for a repeat on Saturday morning. They will play St. Joseph. Any thoughts on the Union girls?
How are you going to bet against the Union girls? They're special. They're good. But you know, truth be told, it depends how many recruit. It depends what kind of a recruiting year St. Joseph's had. You know, you're playing one of these schools that they're oftentimes Pittsburgh AAU teams. So, but I'll take my chances with the Union girls against anybody. Coach Nelgate does a great job. And again, when that program has come full circle, you know, when my girls played, when you went to Union, you just put the dub in the book. It was guaranteed. Now, you better have your big boy pants on if you're gonna beat the Union Scotty women, because they're tough.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that it was a given years ago, that it was a victory. You put it in the books. Right now in time, the Union girls are winning these games the way they lost them. They're winning games 56-13, 59-16, 59-16. They're winning these games just as easily as they were falling about 5-10 years ago.
I don't anticipate that this championship game is going to be. Normally, when you get to the WPIAL final, there are the talent's pretty equal. Even though I remember one year, the Neshannock women played Canavan at the Pete right before we played, and they were getting beat at halftime 45-15. You know, but that's unusual. And then of course Neshannock came back years later and won 2 WPIALs in a row. But I would anticipate you're going to have a pretty good game on Saturday morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kelly Cleaver leads the way for the Union girls. She can do anything on the court. You know, offense, play defense, get steals, good free throw shooter. Not a whole lot that Kelly Cleaver can't do.
No, she's a special player, and she's not a senior yet, is she, Ronnie? Is she a junior?
I believe she's a senior. I believe. I'm not 100% sure though.
All right. Yeah. She's been a really good player for a couple of years at Union.
Okay, so here's the lone update I have. I have nothing on the Neshannock Mohawk. At halftime, Elwood City 17, York 17. So it's anybody's ball.
Low scoring game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm checking myself on Lawrence County Sportsnet. Is that what you're following here?
That Elwood game was posted on the Elwood page. Lawrence County Sportsnet had nothing since the Wilmington game went final.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the state road's a little bit of a tougher road because of the travel and because of the unfamiliarity of the teams you're about to play. You just never know what you may or may not run into. And but Lawrence County basketball is pretty good. So, I'll take and WPIAL basketball is really good. So, I'll take my chances with these Lawrence County teams against anybody.
Key victory on Tuesday night for the Union boys too, beating Rochester 62-59. Granted, both teams were in no matter who won, but as a 3 seed, Union, I believe they play the 5-2. With a 4 seed, they would be playing the District 10 champ, and it's probably going to be Farrell. They've already lost to Farrell, but it was competitive. I think it was 58-51 in one of those showcase games at West College.
Yeah. And the higher seed normally gets to play closer to home, which is important, meaning you're not traveling as far. When you're the lower seed, you got to get on a bus, and it's a long bus ride normally in the state playoff games. So I can't remember, Ronnie, what was the name of the high school we played Abington in the Western Final right outside of Carlisle? What was that high school? I can't recall now.
Chambersburg,
right. Chambersburg. Man, we had to drive up a mountain in a bus. Yep. And I remember looking out the window saying, if this bus driver, if he makes the wrong turn here, we're going over a cliff. It was a long ride, but after winning that game, that ride was a lot shorter coming home. And what I remember is, too, we got home literally 1 o'clock in the morning, and there was probably 100 people waiting for us at the high school, when we got off the bus. And, man, it was, the bus ride coming home was a lot shorter when you win those games because we knew we were going to the state championship.
Yeah, if nobody has been to Chambersburg, if you get off at the correct exit, the exit that Larry's referring to, when you get off there, you go up and then down and then up. It's almost like an amusement park ride.
It was like a toboggan sled run. And I'm in this bus, and I'm thinking, bus driver's 75 years old. I'm thinking, man, I hope this guy stays on the road. I want to get to the game. I do.
You want to give out speeding tickets, just have a cop sit at the bottom of one of those hills, because I'm telling you, when you get up there and you go down, you're going about 90 miles an hour.
Oh, man, it was crazy. And it was a long ride. You remember that ride, Ronnie? Did you cover that game?
I did.
Yeah.
The one memory I have, a lot of them, guy for Abington, that's the Abington game you're talking about. He had the sandwich board on. He had the A on there. I remember that. But Joe said about a half hour, 45 minutes behind me, and I remember calling him saying, "Where are you at?" And he had just got off the exit, and I had already experienced that. So he gets to the gym and he's cursing left and right for me not telling him about the hill. I said, "Hey, nobody gave me a heads up either,
Oh, man, it was crazy. The one thing, I remember a lot about that game. I do. I remember Malik Hooker taking the charge. I remember his block. But the last thing I remember is when we finally won that game, the Hershey Kisses being pelted onto the floor. About 20 of them hit me in the head, but I was okay with that. And I still have one in my drawer here that I kept just as a memento. Yeah.
You can't forget about the home run pass from, I believe, Stu Allen.
Allen. No. Malik Hooker to Stu Allen.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That's when they took the lead for the only time in the game. And again, it's maybe 2 minutes to go. And Malik immediately gets the ball, throws a bullet to Stu Allen, who lays it in to give us the lead back. Yeah, I remember a lot about that game like it was yesterday. But with us, every time I remember it, it's with a smile on my face because we win and then go to the state championship and, of course, win that night too.
That's what the local teams will be trying to get next week. Those basketball playoff games in the state playoffs, they start March 8th and March 9th. So those teams are going to be looking for those type of memories on the boys and girls side. Larry Kelly, thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching us out there, everybody, and we wish the very best of luck to the Union High girls basketball team as it goes for a repeat in the WPIAL Class 1A Championship. We'll be back next week to talk about that game and so much more. We'll be back here next week on Tip-Off.
We all know there's an advantage to playing at home, to being the home team. At LGKG, we've been your home team personal injury attorneys for auto accident and workers' compensation cases for over 90 years. We know what works and how to win. We have all the credentials. At LGKG, we don't take every case. We handpick our clients so that we can give you the attention you deserve.